Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comic, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it is a weekend. That means it's time to talk about movies or television again. Tonight is a science fiction thriller theme. We're going to talk about two different movies. Our first movie of the evening we're going to talk about tonight. And sorry about that. I went to do something and it didn't work. All right, there we go. First movie is Time Lapse 2014, directed by Bradley D. King, written by Bradley D. King and B.P. Cooper, produced by Kim Carney, B.P. Cooper, Sarah Craig, and Rick Montgomery, starring Danielle Panabaker, Matt O'Leary, George Finn, Amin Joseph, Jason Spizak, David Figlioli, Sharon Mon, and John Rhys Davies. Technically, he's in the movie, but he's not. All of his role gets left on the cutting room floor, but he is seen in movies, in photos taken and that are shown in the film. So he's technically a character in the film, but he doesn't get to have a speaking role. Production companies: Uncooperative Pictures and Veritas Productions. Released April 18, 2014, with a running time of 104 minutes, is a science fiction thriller. Sorry, just moving things out of the way. What it's about. Finn, Matt O'Leary, is a painter with a creative block who lives together with his girlfriend Callie, played by Danielle Panabaker, and his best friend Jasper, George Finn, in an apartment complex where Finn works as the apartment manager. Because an elder lieutenant, Mr. Bezarides, informally called Mr. B by the protagonists, has not paid his rent in 2 months, Callie goes in to check on him and discovers a strange machine in his apartment that takes Polaroid photos of their living room's picture window. Apparently, photos from 24 hours in the future, always at 8 p.m., and although Mr. B's photo display also includes daytime photos and is missing some photos. The friends check Mr. B's storage unit and find his inexplicably charred corpse. He has been dead for apparently a week. Well, when they realize that this giant machine that takes up the entire main room of the apartment takes these weird future photos, gambling at Jasper decides that they should use the machine to win bets. And the other two are talking them out of it, but the next day's photo confirms that they do that. So, that the photo says we do it, we do it. It also shows that Finn has finally created a new painting. Basically, what it does is he copies the work that's in the photo. So it's like, I don't know, whatever. So that's what goes on. Based on what happened to Mr. B and notes in his journal, the trio theorize that they have to make sure that the events in the photos have to occur, or the timeline will break and they'll all die as he did. That's their conclusions as to the events going on at this point. Several days go by. The friends confront Mr. B's disappearance, including lying to the complex security guard, Big Joe, claiming that the old man is in the hospital. After a week, they get a disturbing photo. Callie kissing Jasper while Finn paints in the background. Feeling that they all have to do what's in the photos, they pose at 8 o'clock the following night. But the actual kiss goes on too long while Finn paints, and as a result, he gets angry and jealous. The next photo shows Jasper's violent bookie, Ivan, at the apartment. Not knowing why he would be there, Jasper calls Ivan the next morning, saying he's not going to be making any bets that day. Well, that call actually raises Ivan's suspicions, so of course Ivan comes to visit Jasper that night, and of course, after, basically threatening to kill him, Jasper tells him of the machine. Ivan forces the friends to now pose for the photos with many more event results for Ivan to make bets on. Finn and Jasper's friendship is strained by these events, as Ivan would keep each photo from every night, preventing Finn from seeing his painting. Jasper manages to get a cell phone picture off his cell phone and gives that to Finn after giving the actual photo to Ivan's muscle goon, Marcus. This photo shows a hastily made skull and crossbones on the canvas, which Jasper leaves as a warning to themselves, so he hides weapons, a kitchen knife, a golf club, and a hammer, near the couch in the living room. The next evening, Finn runs into Big Joe at the gate, who has just gotten a job as a police officer, so he's turning over the keys and saying, hey, I'm done working as security here. Marcus sees their meeting, and he calls Ivan, who does not believe their story about Big Joe. Ivan threatens all of them, but Jasper convinces him that tonight's new photo is actually of Ivan's death at Marcus's hands. While Ivan retrieves the photo from the other building, Jasper stabs Marcus and then clubs Ivan to death on his return. They then hide the bodies in Mr. B's storage unit. Finn and Callie fight, so Finn sleeps on the couch. They fight over everything that's happened, basically. It's like, we need to get, Finn wants to leave. They've got enough money. People have been getting killed. He wants out of it. But she's more or less, no, we're okay. We're okay. And she sides with Jasper. Later that night, they're visited by Mr. B's colleague, Dr. Heidecker, who is looking for Mr. B. When Finn and Jasper can't keep their story straight about his whereabouts, she levels a gun at them and forces them to confess the situation, which she pretty much already knows what the situation is because she's been informed by him by a letter. Mr. B had mailed her the letter and a photo that covers the next night. But before his death, meaning that the machine could be set several days in advance and not just take it 24 hours in advance. The photo shows blood on the window, Mr. B's hat on the friend's couch. Jasper is taken to wearing the dead man's hat, and a picture of a green coil that resembles the broken device on the ground next to Mr. B's corpse. Dr. Heidecker theorizes that time did not kill him for trying to change the future, and saying knocked over the coil in the storage unit and the released gas is what killed him. As she does not know how to adjust the settings of the machine, Jasper just shoots her using Ivan's gun and kills her. Because Jasper's a prick. The next night's photo shows Callie and Jasper having sex in the window with Finn unconscious on the couch. Finn talks with Jasper, trying to devise a means to prevent these events, but Jasper knocks him out and locks him in Mr. B's storage unit as he does not believe Dr. Heidecker's theory and intends to prevent a paradox, making sure that photo happens no matter what. Trying to find a way out of the locked storage unit, Finn searches Heidecker's purse and finds a photo that included blood on the window Mr. B's had on the couch and the painting of the coil. And he had to have painted the coil in the future the next day so that Mr. B would die in the storage room in the first place. So he figures there's got to be a way to find a way to escape. So he finds Mr. B's keys and uses them to unlock the door from the inside and gets out. I guess. I was a little bit confused on that. He escapes and goes to the machine. He calls Jasper, who sees him at the machine and threatens to destroy it if Jasper doesn't stop. A fight ensues, culminating with Callie smashing Jasper's head in with a what is it? Fortune teller's globe. The crystal ball. When making the painting to match Heidecker's photo, Finn realizes a discrepancy. He discovers that the camera also takes a photo at 8 a.m., a truth which Callie has kept to herself the entire time. She then reveals that she's been using the morning photo to send herself messages to manipulate the events and rekindle her relationship with Finn, because they were basically falling apart because of his art mental block. The sex photo was actually one of those that was missing from Mr. B's wall from a drunken night over a month ago, and the other missing photos are ones of Callie and Jasper being affectionate, which she took down from the wall when she first discovered the machine because, of course, basically she's a tramp. Horrified by this reveal and realizing that he's been used up by everybody, he rejects Callie and goes to destroy the machine. In so doing, Callie grabs the gun that Jasper has and shoots Finn in the back, creating the blood splatter effect from Heidecker's photo. Callie thinks that if she sends herself a message in the window when the photo is taken, it'll send the message to herself 24 hours ago, preventing these events from happening. But while she's attempting to tape the note to herself on the window, Big Joe stops by because Finn called him to say, hey, check out what's going on here, because the plan for Finn was to leave and get out of there and have Jasper get caught with all the money and the dead bodies and everything. So, of course, he discovers the blood on the window, and he can see through the window what's going on. And it's like, well, what the heck? So he has to arrest her. As Callie is led away by Joe, she's still confident that the timeline will somehow reset because the note is there on the window. It falls off the window, which supposedly makes all the events that have taken place permanent. The camera takes the photo that Mr. B mailed to Heidecker before he died and generates another photo, which we never see. It's left unrevealed. It's quite funny how it ends, the way they film it. What did I think of this? I thought it was going to be something completely different than it turned out to be. I thought it was more like a time machine type thing rather than what it was. That having been said, it was interesting for a while, but it got to be all a little bit too much for me with what was going on and the events. They kept doing the wrong things because, well, we have to, because that's what happens in the photo. It just, I was siding more and more with Finn and not understanding why the girlfriend wasn't going along with him. And then they had the reveal at the end, which did kind of save the film for me. I totally disliked the Jasper character from the start. He's just a shady scumbag type loser that I kind of wondered how he and Finn ever were friends and roommates to ever start with. Jasper's such an idiot on so many levels. Seeing Callie and Jasper sort of hitting it off early on in different things was sending me they've been getting together all along vibes from the start. So I was like, I was not really surprised by the reveal of that. But I kept wanting Finn to just pack up and leave and then tell Joe about the machine. But I knew there had to be a twist. Where was the other timeline of photos from? And then the reveal at the end of the film started to play out. And I was both elated and sad. Elated because of the twist where Callie gets arrested. Because it was just the way they play it out is very funny. Though honestly, even if the paper taped on the window doesn't fall off, I don't exactly understand how she's going to prevent the events from happening, per se, because I guess the photo had been retrieved by the previous morning and she know not to get caught by the window. But it didn't quite make sense to me. I thought that she'd still end up being caught no matter what. That's how it struck me. Unfortunately, this story has many sources that it's influenced by or is outright swiping from. The writers in the special features section of the DVD mentioned how only a week before shooting, someone had told them about episode 46 of The Twilight Zone, called The Most Unusual Camera. In that story, there are 3 protagonists, 2 male and a female, who come into possession of a camera that can take pictures of 5 minutes into the future, which they happen to use to win money on horse races, which is, of course, what happens in this film. But now that just so happened to be coincidental, they supposedly did not know of the episode of Twilight Zone. Hard to believe. But, probably what the truth is, they probably saw it, didn't remember it, and then subconsciously it was recalled while they were making up the story. But they didn't know that's the source that they recalled it from. That's probably what happened. The relationship dynamics among the 3 main characters in the single location time lapse are also very similar to Danny Boyle's 1994 film Shallow Grave. And it was also, being a low-budget indie drama focused on time paradoxes, the film was also compared with Shane Carruth's Primer. However, the film did win 21 awards at various film festivals along the indie film circuit. I don't know if it was really that great a film to warrant that many awards, personally, but it wasn't that bad a film either. I just would have made it shorter, I think. Maybe not done gone as far as some of the things that they did, but it's okay. It is a not rated movie because it was never released in theaters. It was just film festivals and then direct to DVD. It is recommended for ages 14 and up. There's a little bit of not really nudity, but suggestive sexuality scenes that have partial nudes, I guess you could say. It's recommended for ages 14 and up, and I give it a 3.5 stars. And yes, I did notice the person who just got blocked. Hopefully, I won't have that problem again. Our next film is Underwater. And it's from 2020. Director William Eubank, writers Brian Duffield and Adam Kozad did the screenplay with a story by Brian Duffield. Produced by Peter Chernin, Tanya Davis, and Jenno Topping. It stars Kristen Stewart, Vincent Cassel, Jessica Henwick, John Gallagher Jr., I don't know how to pronounce his name, Mamoto, Athi, that's a heck of a name, and TJ Miller. Production companies are TSG Entertainment and Chernin Entertainment. Distributor is 20th Century Fox Disney. The release date is January 10th, 2020. It has a running time of 95 minutes. And again, it is a science fiction thriller horror film. And what it's about. We're Kepler 822 rather. A research and drilling facility operated by Tian Industries at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It gets struck by a strong earthquake. As part of the facility is destroyed by this quake, mechanical engineer Nora Price and her colleagues, Rodrigo and Paul, make their way to the escape pod bay, but they discover that all the escape pods have been already deployed, and Captain Lucien is the only person in the area. When they get there, he basically just stayed behind because he goes down with his ship or whatever. Together, however, they reach a control base and find biologist Everly Hamersham and engineer Liam Smith, who are also in a personal relationship between two of them, who confirm that there is no contact with the surface. Lucien suggests using pressurized suits to walk 1 mile across the ocean floor to Roebuck 641, which is the main drill, and attempt to resurface from there. As they descend in a freight elevator, Rodrigo's defective helmet implodes under the water pressure. This helmet was supposed to be Nora's, and for whatever reason, he gave her his and changed. I think he knew that her helmet was defective and that she would die. But they see it and it freaks everybody else out. But anyway, they have to go on. So they see a distress beacon from one of the escape pods below, and they're like, what's going on here? How come the escape pod's down there? It should have already been up to the surface. So Smith and Paul go to investigate. When they get to the location, they find the body in the rubble of the destroyed escape pod. As they're checking the corpse, a creature emerges from the corpse back and attacks. Smith kills the creature and takes it inside with him as the two of them get back into their safe environment. Habersham examines the creature and realizes that it belongs to a previously undiscovered species. Unfortunately, all of this has triggered more quakes, and they have to keep moving, and so they have to leave the evidence behind and go get to Roebuck 641 so they can get on the escape pods. The five make their way back out to the seafloor, but as they are walking, Kepler 822 explodes above them and nearly buries them in debris. Smith gets hit, but Price and Lucian save him. They get through an access tunnel to an intermediate station where they can charge and clean their suits. But Smith's oxygen scrubber has been badly damaged from all the debris. On their way through the access tunnel, Paul is attacked by an unknown creature, dragged underwater, and killed. Before the team leaves the access tunnel, they find that Smith's damaged oxygen pod will cause him to suffocate from the explosion's toxic fumes. Unwilling to leave another crew member behind, though, Price, Lucian, and Havisham agree to help Smith walk through the water, and so he won't have to exert himself as much, and might be able to get there without exhausting his oxygen supply. The four set off across the ocean floor, but a humanoid creature appears and drags Smith into a cave. This humanoid creature is kind of weird. Top half, kind of like an alien xenomorph. Back half, kind of like a squid type thing. Anyway, it grabs Smith and drags him into a cave. Lucian gets Smith out, but himself gets pulled away from the other three. But he was connected to Price, so Price gets dragged along with Lucian. And Lucian keeps getting dragged in deeper water with increasing pressure differential. And he knows that her body suit will crash. Both their body suits will basically get crushed from the water pressure. So he sacrifices himself and cuts himself loose to spare her, and she goes back up to the water that she can survive at. Water pressure she can survive at. Separated from the others, however, she has to make her way on her own and ends up at the abandoned Shepherd Station, which was a completely different area in the complex, alone. She rummages through Lucian's locker and finds a pentagram drawn on an old blueprint of the initial drawing site. Nothing else is really said. It's just a weird-looking thing, and I don't know. It didn't really seem to suggest anything other than weirdness. Price is able to change her damaged diving suit and get into a new one before continuing toward Roebuck. She walks along the ocean floor, and she reunites with Havisham and Smith, who Havisham has been dragging all by herself, and helps drag Smith the rest of the way. As they enter Roebuck Station, they encounter a nest of these humanoid creatures suspended from the ceiling, and they attempt to sneak by. The sound of Havisham's oxygen alarm, however, awakens the creatures, because, of course, Havisham was dragging Smith. She wore her oxygen supply out. Price gets them out and gets them in, but she gets partially swallowed by one of the creatures, but she frees herself with a flare gun while she's inside of the body, killing it, and she tears herself out of the body. She fires a second flare into the distance and sees creatures. The creatures are spawning off of an ancient Titanic creature, which is apparently supposed to be Cthulhu, but that's not what I recognized it as initially. I didn't know that until after I saw some of the after movie stuff and did some more research on the film. The three humans reach the escape pod bay, but Price discovers that only two of the pods are functional. Price and Havisham get the alien Smith into a pod, and then Price punches Havisham in the face and pushes her into the last one, basically, because she's like, no, we'll go together or something. It's not going to happen. Meanwhile, Cthulhu emerges and attacks the Roebuck while the smaller creatures pursue the two escape pods. Price, accepting that she is doomed and she's going to die, initiates an overload of the Roebuck's nuclear core, which results in a massive explosion that kills her, Cthulhu, and all the creatures. The escape pods safely reach the surface, and we are told that that Havisham and Havisham and Smith are rescued, and that TN Industries refuses to cooperate with any investigations regarding the events and prepares to expand its drilling efforts. There is an alternate ending where, after overloading the nuclear core, Price makes her way to escape the damaged pod and rewrites it, and then still gets away before the Roebuck explodes and kills everybody, all the monsters, and I did not care for that version. What did I think? The film is so derivative of so many other films that it's impossible to ignore and not do a comparative analysis. But rather than spend an hour doing that, I'm just going to give cliff notes and tell you to go watch Alien, Leviathan, and The Abyss again if you want to watch a version of this story that makes any level of sensibility. Chian Industries is essentially the same as Whaling Corporation and Aliens. The crew here are meant to be rough analogs to the crew of the original Alien movie or the crew in Leviathan, but they're not nearly as well developed. In fact, they're so not developed that outside of Kristen Stewart's role as Nora Price, the cast could have worn green suits and been invisible. They're really that non-memorable. Worse are the monsters. Lazy special effects. Let's make a baby xenomorph like the chest burster, but give it a squid and octopoid legs. No one watching will make the connection. That was the first thing that they put in, and she said, well, this is the new species we've discovered. That's what it looks like. And again, I didn't even make the connection to Cthulhu at all visually. It just doesn't look like Cthulhu to me. I'm sorry. As I watched it, and it just wasn't registering as that on screen to me. But the main problem with this film is that there's just a bare bones plot and no characterization whatsoever in the movie. It's all just one death-defying escape with a pretty obvious direction of who's going to buy the farm when. As the group splits up, we are never taken back to Smith and Haversham to show just how the hell Haversham single-handedly dragged Smith across the bottom floor without the beasties getting them both, seeing as they got everybody else, and how they just happen to run into Price with each of them thinking that each other were dead already. It becomes obvious who the survivors of the story are going to be at least a good 25 to 30 minutes before your climactic sequence. They did try to do a quick serve when they have Price swallowed by the beastie in the, but I already knew that was a red herring and that she had to escape because she's the only one of the group competent enough to run the escape pods to get the others to safety. So that sequence should have been happening before she met up with the other two when we didn't know if they were still alive. Most everything about this film screamed over budget knockoff remake. And the film was treated as such by fans. It only earned about $40 million on a $65 to $80 million budget. And that was after it sit on the shelf for 3 years after being made. It was not really released that well. As you can see, I say, sorry, but shaving her head does not make Kristen Stewart become Sigourney Weaver. It just doesn't work. Ultimately, though, they did at least do the right thing in the theatrical cut and have Price Stewart sacrifice herself at the end of the movie, which is the only fair, seeing as how many other people more or less sacrificed themselves for her earlier in the film, even if the writers were not trying to make it so obvious as that. The alternate ending is just plain stupid and doesn't work at all, given how little time the characters are constantly given to go anywhere or get anything done, which is also why there's not enough characterization to make us care about the cast. Why even though I saw the weird pentagram thing in the locker, I didn't make the connection to Cthulhu, because why would I think that when you haven't done anything else to connect it to Lovecraftian storytelling? I will say the cast did the best that they could with this script story. I use that term loosely. Again, it was filmed in 2017 and sat in the vault for 3 years because it is that bad of a movie. And this has a dubious distinction of being the last 20th Century Fox film released. Disney bought Fox up and changed the name of 20th Century Studios afterwards. And maybe they should just put the whole thing of 20th century out to pasture entirely, since we are now 2 decades into the 21st century. And the poor cast is saying, oh, come on, man, it's just a movie. Don't be so negative. I knew we should have run around in our panties in more scenes. And I told you I wanted an underwater welding torch as a weapon. Yes, some of those things have actually made the film better. They barely have either woman really show any skin in this. They do, but they don't. I mean, if you want, like I said, if you want all that, go watch the original Alien with Sigourney Weaver. You'll be much happier. There's not much else to say. It feels like a half-assed Alien remake with less plot and lesser characters. I would feel bad for Kristen Stewart, who gets trashed for her acting on a consistent basis. But first, you kind of have to pick projects that aren't complete duds. You can't turn in a stellar performance in a role when there isn't much of a role to be played. Somehow, though, I don't think Stewart's crying over it. It's not like she hasn't made her money, but I suppose as an artist and performer, I would be concerned if these were the only kind of roles I was being offered. It's okay to do it in your 20s, maybe your early 30s, but you only have so much bank time in Hollywood, especially as a woman. You want to have the career of a Sigourney Weaver, you're going to have to start looking for some better product to work on. I will say that your wetsuits would have looked much cooler as spacesuits, though. Film is rated PG-13. I think they should have gone for the R rating and done a little more showing the women in their skivvies, but whatever. Just something that would have made things more interesting than it was. The breakneck speed of everything happening, though, I guess they just figured, what the heck, you don't need it. But I give it a 2 out of 5, and that's being generous, really. So that is Underwater. And that is our show for this weekend, as far as reviews go. Now, since it ran relatively quickly and nobody seemed to watch except one person who was blocked for posting links about stuff they shouldn't have been on my page, on my channel, I guess what I could do to make it interesting is give you guys, be back in about a half hour and finish up that thing drawing. So if you guys want to see that, that's what I'm working on. I'll be back at 9 to finish this. So until then, next week, our film will be the film Tolkien, about J.R.R. Tolkien's biography, starring Nicholas Hoult. And so that'll be next week. But in the meantime, if you liked my reviews or you think other people might like to watch my reviews, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get support from my channel, or get content from my channel, pardon me. As always, I thank you all for watching and for your support. If you have questions, or you want to talk to me on social media, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, Twitter at LewisBrightRave2, DeviantArt.com/BrightRavens, where you can find more of my artwork. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, exclusively on YouTube. If you have questions, comments that you don't want to share on a chat room or on social media, or you have a suggestion for future episodes, or you have a commission request for artwork that you might want from me, Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com is the address to reach out to me at. If I don't get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. I will see you guys at 9 with a new live draw. Until then, have a good night.